Hi, it is Thursday, October 29th. Moving right along in this week. Maddox, you did a good job. You made a 93 on your CBA. You only missed one. I'm going to kind of go over it with you in this video. Good job. We're excited to see all your awesomeness when you come to face, and Miss Ledger can't wait to meet you. Doing a great job. All right, so I'm going to go over the I guess you could call it agenda for today. Do attendance like you do every day. Watch the instructional video for today, which is what you're doing right now. Reflect on your time during remote learning and answer the questions on the Google Doc that is attached. So this is what the Google Doc that's attached looks like. It says reflection of remote learning. When you do reflective thinking, you're thinking back on your experience in something. So you've been experiencing remote learning for 11 weeks now. So there's 4 questions that I want you to really think about and answer on this sheet and then turn it in. Again, you're thinking about your experience with remote learning. Question 1 is, what was great about remote learning? So click right here and answer in a complete sentence. You're probably going to want to say, blank was great about remote learning because, and then finish the sentence and put a period, okay? Just a suggestion. This one says, what was not so great about remote learning? Okay, same thing, you could put blank was not so great about remote learning because. So Ms. Grigsby and I definitely want to know why you liked or you disliked whatever it was about remote learning. Question 3. What is one thing you learned from each class during remote learning? So what I would do, think about your classes, language arts, what's one thing you learned? Science, what's one thing you learned? Math, what's one thing you learned? History, what's one thing you learned? PE, what's one thing you learned? So I'll leave these here for you and you can just fill this in with whatever it is that you learned. And your 4th question, what excites you the most about coming back to school face-to-face? So think about that. And blank excites me the most because, and write why and put a period. Okay? So we're excited to see your responses. And it's always good for us to do reflective thinking because it's a high level of thinking. And it shows that you have some metacognition. You think about your own thinking and you think about the good and the bad because that helps you make decisions for the future. Okay? So we want you to do a little reflective thinking. And then you can turn this in. Okay? So that is the assignment that's attached for today. I also have the plot diagram and fiction symbols that I'm going to be looking at today in the instructional video, along with the question that you missed on the CBA. So let's hit to the CBA first. You missed number 9, and I have your test right here. And on number 9, it has a lengthy little paragraph here, which is impressive because you can't have that read out loud. So it's something that you actually read on your own and then you analyzed from that. So the question is, why are the events in paragraph 14 important to the plot? Here's paragraph 14. The key word in this question is plot. So the plot of the story is the entire story, okay? The exposition, the rising action, the turning point or climax, the falling action, the resolution, the theme. Those are all the plot elements that we've discussed. But how does this one paragraph help the plot? Why is it important to the plot? Why is it necessary there? Okay? All right, so I'm going to read it. The next morning, Michelle woke earlier than usual, pleased with her picture-taking accomplishments or successes. Picking up her camera, she paused, noticing that she could take one more picture to complete the roll of film. She walked across the hall to Zach's room and stood outside the door. "Hey, buddy, want me to take your picture now?" When she heard nothing in response, she opened the door and peered or looked inside. Zach, normally as active as a fly in a donut shop, was on his stomach, sleeping quietly. Stuffed animals were scattered around him. A teddy bear was tucked under one arm, and a blanket was wrapped possessively around one foot. Sunlight cast its beam across his back. Carefully, Michelle knelt down and took a picture. "Mom will like this," she thought as she shut Zach's door quietly. Okay, so you chose C. Michelle takes a photo that will please her mother. Now, I agree with that statement, and that's probably true. However, why is this whole paragraph, though, important to the ending of the story, the plot of the story, the sequence of the story? It's important to the sequence of the story, the plot of the story, because A, Michelle ends up taking the photo that she decides to submit for the contest. If this paragraph was not in this story, that ends up being her photo. And so if she just says at the end of the story that she chose a photo she took of her brother, okay, thanks for telling us about it. Well, here the author is telling us about it, and that is why it's important to the plot. The author could not have left this paragraph out. If he did, it would have changed everything we would have read at the end. We would have about the resolution. So it's really important that this paragraph is there because it gives us a hint, and it explains later too that this is the actual photo she chooses as her contest submission. Okay, so the answer here is A. So if you have any questions about that, you can let Ms. Grigsby or I know. But C is another reasonable answer choice that other sixth graders have chosen. That's your distractor answer choice, but that's not really why this whole paragraph is important to the whole story. Okay? All right, so that's all for your CBA that I'm going to talk about. Okay. So looking at our next thing today is some more about the plot symbols when you're annotating. I showed you a video earlier this week about about the little story flipped that we've been studying, and I went through the plot symbols just like what you see on the screen, and I went through and I actually showed you how to plot them on the passage, and that's your annotation. So you're going to be looking at that again today, and I'm going to teach you another lesson so you have some more familiarity with this process when you're reading fiction. Okay? So remember, you have your exposition, you have where you put your setting and your characters. The symbol for time and place is a house and a clock, obviously. Stick figures are animals for your main characters. When you discover who your main character is, you're going to put a star next to that character. Okay, but anytime you come across a character in the story, you could put the little stick figure over it. Then you have rising action. Okay, you have red is the blocking force. Okay, blue is moving towards the wish. That's it's based on the conflict, the problem of the story. It moves upward toward the turning point climax. The turning point climax is a major change in the story, especially a character change. Then you have falling action. These are events that happen right after the turning point climax because the problem's over. So the falling action is going to be short because the problem and the climax are all the good stuff in the story. The falling action is, I guess you could say, boring because the problem's over. So it's going to be short, and it's going to actually run into the resolution, which is the actual solution to the problem. How is the problem finally solved? How do you know that it's over? Okay. Your main character has a problem, which is represented by a lightning bolt, and your main character has a wish, which is represented by a wishbone. Okay. And then lastly, we come up with the theme, which is the life lesson of the story, and it's symbolized with a magnifying glass, and that's what this is. Okay, so I'm going to switch screens. Okay, so I have a printed copy here that I'm working off of, and bear with me as I keep glancing at the little screen to make sure you can see everything that I'm doing. So we're going to use, excuse me, Up to the Mountaintop as our passage that I'm going to annotate using those symbols, okay? So as I'm reading, I'm actually going to write the symbol that should be placed on the passage as you're reading, as your annotation, okay? Up to the Mountaintop. I like challenges, but this one was almost too difficult. I had begged Mom to take me on a completely new adventure for my 16th birthday. Okay, so I have an I, which is the narrator, the person telling the story, and then I've come across Mom. Okay. Now, here we were, just Mom and me with our guide Milo, it's another character, standing on the shore of Lake Arenal in Costa Rica. That is actually a place. Told you my drawing's not very good, but I can somewhat draw a house. Towering above the lake was Volcan Arenal, one of the active volcanoes in the region. I watched as the volcano spit out lava and coughed up big boulders. Luckily, we were headed in the other direction. Milo greeted us in Spanish and helped us mount our horses. Getting on my horse was difficult, but controlling it was a little easier. We started on our tour. The guidebook said we'd cross 3 rivers. As we splashed through a stream, I asked, was that the first river? Okay, so let's stop here for a second. The first issue that she has is getting on her horse was difficult. Okay, so that's going to be part of your rising action. Okay, a little dot there. That would be symbolized on our rising action part. Okay. And then I'm going to keep going. We started on our tour. The guidebook said we crossed 3 rivers. As we splashed through a stream, I asked, was that the first river? So she's already questioning herself. Okay. This is a tough question. She asked herself, and the reason why she's asking herself this is because she's a little nervous. Okay. So I'm going to underline this. This is part of the rising action. Mom said, I don't think so. Riley, which is kind of like, oh, like she's probably making this face when she says it. I don't think so, Katie. Like she's kind of scared too. She's a little nervous too. Soon enough, we came to the first river. There was no mistaking it. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw that the far shore was half a football field away. The 4-foot deep river flowed over boulders, so much for dry shoes or jeans. So this whole little episode here is part of the rising action. Okay. And you can remember that the arrow goes upward because it's rising toward the climax. Okay. And the climax or the turning point is a time when in the story that a main character makes a major change. Something really big happens. I mean, you kind of know when you come across the turning point. If you don't, then the writer's not very good. After 2 more rivers, the trail got even steeper and muddier. With each step of the horse's hooves, there were loud squishing and sucking sounds. The rainforest was magnificent and absolutely beautiful, but that's a shift word there. It changes the tone. I wondered whether my horse could keep its balance in knee-high mud. What did I know about horses? Another tough question she's asking herself. Okay. I imagined my mare stumbling on rocks hidden beneath the sludge and us crashing over a cliff and being swept away by lava. So these thoughts that she's having, pretty bleak thoughts. She's a little scared. 3 terrifying hours later, we came to a corral. Were we stopping? To one side was a gorgeous view of the lake and volcano, to the other a brightly painted restaurant. Okay, I laughed nervously. That was terrifying, but I'm so glad we get it. Okay, so right here in general, this is your turning point. Okay, I laughed nervously. She's now okay because they stopped. Okay, the conflict's over. She's not scared anymore because they're not on the horse. Okay, that's your turning point. Basically, the falling action and the resolution is that it's over. She was terrified, but she's glad she did it. Okay, and this kind of ends our story. And sometimes this happens, especially when you have a very short story like we do. The falling action and the resolution happen pretty quickly. I mean, almost simultaneously. Our theme, represented by a magnifying glass, okay, is a lesson that we learned in the story. Okay, and I think a lesson learned here is don't be afraid to try new things. When you're thinking about theme, ask yourself this question: how did reading this story make me a better person? Well, obviously, reading this story about Katie made me realize that I need to try some new things because what she did sounds fun, but I would never think about that. So don't be afraid to try new things. Now, let's go back and think about our problem and our wish. Now that we kind of read it, what was Katie's main problem? Her main problem was that she was scared the entire time, but she wanted to go on an adventure. That was her wish, okay? And she even asked her mom, I begged mom to take me on a completely new adventure for my 16th birthday. That is her wish. That's what she wants, okay? However, the problem is, her main problem is that she's scared. She's fearful. She's nervous, okay? And she realized this starts off when she starts mounting her horse, right? Okay. Um, so her stomach, she started feeling sick to her stomach. And so her being scared was the main problem. Remember, it's a lightning bolt. Okay. I'll put Katie scared. Again, this is a little bit, to be honest, it's a little bit more difficult to do a shorter story with these symbols than a longer story. But you get the idea, and I kind of wanted you to see it all in one page. This is my annotation. So you might have done different types of annotations in previous grade levels, like writing summaries or, I don't know, maybe short notes about each paragraph. But this is what you do for fiction in 6th grade, is you write these symbols down, and that's your annotation. When you answer the questions, that's when you do pattern of proof. You prove why you choose the answer that you did, why you came to the conclusion that you did. And you should find 3 pieces of text evidence to prove your answer. Okay? So, fiction symbols and pattern of proof, what we've been going over the last several days, is something that you're going to be using all year in 6th grade. And it will help you prepare for 7th grade and 8th grade that Miss Grigsby and I teach, 7th and 8th. So, hopefully you got some more information out of this. Like I said, make sure I gave you that little slide of the symbols so you can remember them and you'll be familiar with them when Miss Ledger talks about them. Okay. And when she asks you to annotate and use your symbols, you'll know what she's talking about. Okay. All right. Well, that's all for today. And answer those reflective questions that that we gave you in Google Classroom, and turn those in. And that's all you're doing for today for language arts. Okay. Well, we'll talk to you later.